Thank you, Gina. What an amazing welcome. I'm very privileged and honoured to be here speaking to you all as a community because I feel like health needs to be done at a community level. We all need to be able to have conversations together. And so tonight, I want to invite you to have conversations with me. It's an invitation for a paradigm shift in thinking. A way of thinking that's free of judgment. A way of thinking that's curious and playful. A way of thinking that might look at different ideas, explore things, forge a rich, enlightened path together, where questions are welcomed and diversity celebrated. This paradigm shift is a little bit like seeing an optical illusion. First of all, you might see the clarinet player, and then you'll see the pretty woman. And the next one, there's three things that you might see. Once you see the young woman, then you see the older woman, and then you see the Mexican guy. And the next one, do you see a duck? Do you see a rabbit? Do you see them both? The thing that I love about this is once you see them both, it's like you can't go back. Health feels to me like it's like that. Once you actually understand what promotes health, what gives you health, what invites you back into the light side of health, you really can't go back. It's a bit like photosynthesis. Do you remember in primary school learning about photosynthesis? Photons of light from the sun, which are also wavelengths, frequencies. They meet with carbon dioxide, which is invisible to us. Don't really even know it's there. Bam, it makes carbohydrates, which is the basis of our food. Can't live without it. But the amazing thing is, at the same time, we should have been taught that our bodies react in very similar way to plants. We wouldn't ever put our plants in a cupboard, and yet we've locked ourselves away from the light. So, this is an invitation to step out of the darkness and into the light, to see health differently, consider a change in paradigm, form your intention for tonight, and think about how that might take you into a happier, healthier future. Take control of your own destiny. Hopefully, I will give you some hope. So, this is not medical advice. Yes, I got introduced as a GP. I am a GP, 35 years. But firstly, I'm a mother. I have 4 incredible children. And that's what took me on a journey of looking at health differently. If you have a medical problem, please go and see your doctor. First of all, why I like to talk to people about health. My son Liam, he was born with 10 fingers, 10 toes, and a spark to him that was undeniable. Within 3 years, he developed epilepsy, and then our world shifted. I was taking him to a lot of medical appointments, and what started as something like a feeling in my gut that something wasn't right in the way I was getting help just made things change inside my head. I had to get stronger to be a better mother for him. So just a little bit about epilepsy. It's an electrical disturbance of the brain. It's described as an electrical disturbance. It's the very definition is electrical, and yet none of the treatments that I was getting from doctors had anything to do with electricity. So 1 in 25 people in Australia have epilepsy. 1/3 of those people never get control. 24 of those, epilepsy has 24 times greater chance of early death, usually in your sleep. It impacts every aspect of a person's life, and it is catastrophic when you can't get control. So our world was transformed. Medical appointments, therapy roller coasters, schools, mainstream schools wouldn't accept our child. Of course, this had a huge financial impact as well. You know, families are under enormous pressure when they have a child with special needs. It impacts your work. You then have NDIS involved. We're very thankful for NDIS. It's been amazing, but it's tricky to negotiate. It made me feel isolated. It made me feel that my world was shrinking. It was hard to kind of look for help. As a doctor, I felt helpless and hopeless. I was meant to be able to fix people, and I couldn't even fix my son. So I kind of needed to do a paradigm shift in my thinking. I needed to think more clearly so that I could help my son. The first thought I had was, the world is equally beautiful upside down. And it really absolutely is. I invite all of you to go to a beach, get yourself upside down somehow, maybe not like this guy, but yeah, just look between your legs and it's still beautiful. And so I kind of, well, we as a family actually just came up with this whole idea that we were actually not just going to survive our situation, we were going to thrive, and we were going to do everything that we could to help Liam, which meant we had to be strong. So we had to go looking for ways to be strong, because the current ways that I was eating, exercising, doing health, it wasn't working. And by the way, I like to give a big shout out to any siblings that might happen to be here, because siblings don't see the disability, they don't see the dysfunction, they don't see the disease, they just see the person. And that they taught me that that's how I had to look at life with Liam. So like Liam went looking for his junk mail in the wheelie bin, I had to go down the rabbit holes. I had to go back to the textbooks and find out how to build a brain. What does a brain actually need to be healthy? What does a brain need to function well? But I was also on my own journey, menopause meeting pre-diabetes, which is actually where we all get to. We all get this condition called insulin resistance around about midlife. And when you get menopause and metabolic syndrome, it makes your brain stop working clearly. So I had to clear myself first. So at the time I was thinking about all of this, so I had Liam, I had me, I was also seeing patients. And I'm starting to realise my patients with depression, after seeing them for say 15 years, are not getting better. Everybody's still on their antidepressants. I'm following the guidelines diligently, but they're all still on their antidepressants, and they're going off to see the psychologist, and they're going off to see psychiatrists, and they might just get put on more medications. And people don't want to just be put on more medications. They're actually looking for answers. Anxiety was getting worse. More and more people were coming along with anxiety. ADHD, we all know ADHD is just going through the ceiling. Autism spectrum disorder has gone from 1 in 10,000 20 years ago to now 1 in 40. Now, if that's not making us stop and think what is going on, something should be. Dementia, everybody knows, the rates of dementia are increasing. Stroke, 1 stroke every 11 minutes right now. I think that's pretty damning. Epilepsy, we don't know what's happening with epilepsy because nobody cares enough to keep the data. And that's saying something in itself. Brain cancer, again, very little data. It's very inconvenient. MS, 56% increase in diagnosis in 10 years. Again, what's going on? Parkinson's, 50 people diagnosed every day. And then if you have a look at what are the leading causes of death, and to me, the standout is suicide. If you have a look, so when I graduated, the 15 to 24-year-olds were mainly dying from car accidents, and now it's suicide. Again, if this isn't a national disgrace, I don't know what is, because something that is going on is not okay, and we should be asking for change. But then the rest that I get from this, this readily available data is most of the conditions on here are actually metabolic. So what does that mean? I'm going to ask you to do that jump in paradigm. It means they are reversible. We just need to get the right information and we can start reversing some of these. So, current paradigm, we kick the metabolic can down on the road and nothing actually changes. I want to invite you into seeing this differently. So because this is about the brain, I want to give you some fun facts. The brain's 2% of our body weight, but uses 20% of the body's energy. So that's enough to power a small light road. The glymphatic system cleans the brain during sleep. So when we go into deep sleep, it's almost like a flushing occurs every night when we sleep well. The brain is actually a light trap. So you know how it's cauliflower? It looks like cauliflower or broccoli? It's actually designed to trap infrared. Infrared moves into the brain. Exercise under sunlight drives plasma melatonin. We all know how important melatonin is. Melatonin is not just the hormone of nighttime that makes us go to sleep, but it's an antioxidant in every cell of our body. Neurons emit and absorb biophotons. The brain is beyond biochemical, it's electrical. And get this, brains can repair. We all know this. We've all kind of heard of neuroplasticity, haven't we? So that's synaptic remodeling and cortical remapping, driven by brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And what helps that? Exercise, ketones, cold exposure. How fascinating. Neurogenesis. New neurons get birthed all the time, especially in the hippocampus. That's where our memory is. And in an olfactory bulb. So, smell. How about that? We can actually regenerate. Myelin repairs. It's cholesterol intensive and it relies on sodium channels. And there I just mentioned two things, cholesterol and sodium. So the brain makes all its own cholesterol. It's amazing. Certain medications can actually reduce the cholesterol in the brain. And if we need it, I ask myself, why would we want to do that? So lymphatic clearance, again what I mentioned about sleep, it requires nitric oxide. Nitric oxide only occurs under the influence of ultraviolet light and near infrared. So I current paradigm, I feel sick and tired. So I try and solve it myself. And when I've tried to solve it myself for quite a while, and it's not working, I go and see the doctor. I get a diagnosis, which is a label stuck to your head. Keep it for as long as you like, or can we reverse it? Good question. Current paradigm, medication, psychologists and psychiatrists. For Leanne, the medication, if it worked for epilepsy, I would have said, fabulous, this is brilliant, I love the stuff. But it's not working, so we had to look elsewhere. So following the current paradigm, you are not going to change your metabolic situation. And if nothing changes, nothing changes. So I'm going to introduce you now to the researchers. This is Albert Zent Georgi, and he was a Hungarian biochemist. Research is to see what everybody else has seen, but to think what nobody else has thought. And he also commented that almost every healing always involved energy, until recently. My absolute hero, Douglas C. Wallace. He's the mitochondrial researcher. So he introduced me to the whole idea of what is the difference, and this is a question for everybody here, what is the difference between a live body and a dead body? Lying next to each other, the live body is in between breaths and in between heartbeats. What is the difference? Difference is energy. So So you ask yourself the question, well, where does energy occur inside the body? I've never really thought about that. Is that my soul? Is that my spirit? Well, absolutely, it probably is, but we cannot exist outside of physics. So we have to have physics happening inside us. So energy is neither created nor destroyed, it's merely transformed. Where is energy transformed in our bodies? In the mitochondria. Yes. So, Douglas C. Wallace says life is actually structure, right? That's what we're made of. That's what we eat for. Plus information. The information comes from inside, so that's our genes, but it also comes from outside as well. So when we're outside, we get information about the temperature, we get information about the light. But also, life is energy. We do not exist without energy. So if life is structure plus information plus energy, then health is structure plus information plus energy. Always has to be. So mitochondrial DNA are maternally inherited. This is amazing. So you think about, oh, my genes come from my mum and my dad. Yeah, that's your nuclear genes. You have one nucleus per cell in your body. You have hundreds to thousands of mitochondria per cell in your body. And they are all transforming energy. But they only come from the maternal side. So you go back through your mother, your grandmother's mother, you keep going back. That's your mitochondrial DNA. Mitochondrial DNA, maternally inherited, it's circular, it's not a double helix, and it codes for energy. So, when we get mutations occurring in the mitochondrial DNA, that's when we get dysfunction occurring. I love this picture. So this picture shows us why the diet pyramid is a load of crap. Because all of our mitochondrial DNA comes from different parts of the world. And we haven't lived here in Australia for very long, with white skin and different coloured eyes. So we have to eat according to our mitochondrial DNA, wherever it came from. How are we going to know that? We actually really have to guess, to tell you the truth. It's at the research stage that you can actually find out what your mitochondrial DNA is, and it probably costs about several $1,000s. Eventually we'll be able to find out. But you have to take this into consideration. When we eat, we have to eat according to where we live, as well as what our mitochondrial DNA are used to. So, everybody here is completely unique. There has never been another one of you before in existence with your mitochondrial DNA, your nuclear DNA, living where you live here and now. Mind-blowing. Yep. So you have to use yourself as your own experiment. Yep. You have to try eating different things. It's not one size fits all. You have to try exercising in different ways. You have to try different lifestyles and see what works for you. And hopefully you can find somebody who can help you. And this is a beautiful example of, it's the model that this amazing man has given us. So I want you to start at the bottom, where it says cancer, metabolic disease, aging, degenerative diseases. I mean, basically immunological diseases, so autoimmune diseases. It's all of the diseases that impact us all. And then you work your way back up there, where it says progressive bioenergetic decline. Okay, so we get sick when our energy is low. Then you go back up and it says mitochondrial damage and somatic mitochondrial DNA mutations. So as you get damage occurring, you will get damage to the mitochondrial DNA. But I'll show you a pretty picture in a minute, which will make you go, oh my goodness, they are constantly repairing. So oxidative phosphorylation, when that is dysfunctional, so that's the generation of energy, it drives all of the diseases. And up the top, yeah, sure, we've got environmental factors like energy demands on us, you know, say we're stressed, or say we've got toxins impacting us. So we need to all the time be thinking, what is driving my disease and what can I do about it? said I've got some pretty pictures. This is what healthy mitochondria look like. So they undergo fission, and they undergo fission when you are exercising. So you split off new mitochondria when you exercise. That gives you more capacity to make energy. They undergo fusion as well when they need to help each other. They'll fuse. They also pull up to each other if they can see that there's another mitochondria that's dysfunctional, low in energy, has mutations in its mitochondrial DNA. They'll form a nanotunnel and they'll feed it. They'll feed it mitochondrial DNA that's healthy, or they'll feed it light energy. Oh my God, amazing. This is what sick mitochondria look like. I'm like, oh my goodness, look like aliens. And these are the amazing researchers who are constantly giving us more and more information about mitochondria. So Martin Pickard is a professor of behavioural medicine and studies mitochondria. So what's that telling us? Our brains and mitochondria. He talks about the social impacts of what's going on with mitochondria. Love it. So, healthy mitochondria make healthy brains. When we start to get low in energy, the places that start to feel it the earliest are the places that need the most energy. Makes sense, right? So, brain, heart, muscle. That's where we have the biggest drivers for energy. So what does it look like in the brain? Well, brain fog, memory loss, lack of focus, poor sleep, lack of motivation, anxiety, panic, this feeling of something's not right, insomnia. What does it look like in the heart? Arrhythmias. That's how it starts. What does it look like in the muscles? Fatigue. Now, if you put all of these things together, you can actually come up with a whole heap of medical conditions. But if you look at it from a mitochondrial perspective, it's a loss of energy. So then you ask yourself the question, what powers mitochondria? What makes our mitochondria healthy? Intuitively, everybody here is drawn to what makes mitochondria healthy. It's you all here tonight. It's community. Love drives mitochondria. There's no doubt about it. But also light. In winter, what do you feel like doing? You feel like going on a holiday to Queensland, right? Or you just get drawn to wherever the cat's sitting, wherever the dog's sitting. You go and sit in the sun. Circadian rhythms are vital. There's nothing that actually improves our health as much as getting out in the morning sunlight. Giving our body the right fuel or substrates, what our structure is made of. In other words, we have to make sure that it aligns with our mitochondrial needs, not just what we have been taught to eat. Movement, there's no doubt, the movement, like I said, it makes fission in your mitochondria. It also makes light in our muscles. But we'll start speaking about that afterwards. So, what I would ask you all to do is think about your light environment. We evolved on this planet, in this solar system, under the influence of not just the sun, but the moon. I mean, our fertility is completely linked to the moon. That's never changed, and it's completely undeniable. Circadian rhythms, sunrise and sunsets are essential signals. They tell our brain what we need to know about the day. Sunlight is essential for so many entry points, not just the mitochondria. We actually absorb UVA, UVB in order to make vitamin D, in order to make nitric oxide, in order to make our hormones. I say to everybody, please have annual skin checks, but please also understand the need for light. Beware artificial lights. When we spend too much time under artificial lights, it's actually damaging to our mitochondria. Again, they've done the research in this. Check out resonance and frequency. So that's kind of the sounds and the music therapies that might actually really help us. We all know how good we feel. I'm going to introduce you to some more researchers now. Scott Zimmerman and Russell Reiter. Melatonin and the optics of the human body. So he's the one who actually said the brain is essentially a light trap. Doctors couldn't see it, neurologists couldn't see it, but you get an engineer to look at the problem. Oh my goodness, that's why the brain's designed like this. Infrared can actually penetrate. Our bodies use invisible near-infrared energy from natural sunlight to repair, protect, and detox our cells. Unlike UV and visible light, near-infrared energy penetrates more than an inch beneath our skin surface to reach the most critical tissues. For example, retina, grey matter, blood vessels, fetuses. How important is that? More than 4,000 peer-reviewed medical journal articles have highlighted how near-infrared is used by our bodies to stimulate and repair. And I love the way he actually compares it in the two red like graphs up the top. So the one that covers a lot more, that's basically sunlight, and the one that's just kind of this steep little peak, that's artificial light. So we are not getting what we need in order to keep repair happening. And this is Alexander Wunsch. He's a German physician and a light biologist, and he does amazing lectures. If you ever want to go online and look up his lectures. And he says, light is information. It's not just illumination, it's information plus packets of photons, plus waves of frequency. Mitochondria absorb the infrared for repair and signaling, and the natural blue light, for timing and suppression of inflammation. What I love about this is that he shows you how by getting sunlight through our retina, the blue light in particular goes through, hits the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which sits just above the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is important for every hormone in our body. Without that sunlight talking to the SCN and the pituitary, we can't make hormones. And yet the way I was taught at medical school to think about hormones is, oh, if somebody's low in hormone, just give them one. Yeah. But now I can say, actually, why don't we see whether you can start producing a little bit more? What have we got to lose? This is a lovely little illustration of melatonin. Unless we get that signal in the morning from the sunlight, we are not going to make melatonin at night in order to sleep well. And remember, when you sleep well, that lymphatic system opens up and you flush your brain out of all the toxic waste. So, bioenergy, so this is just a little slide to tell you that it's not just about mitochondria, it's also about hemoglobin, myoglobin, which absorb photons of sun and then share it around our body as biophotons, and melanin, which you've all kind of been told that actually we're not meant to be getting a suntan, but our melanin can actually hold packets of energy inside our body in order to then share it later. When energy's low, we can use our melanin. We also have structured water, which absorbs bioenergy. And the brain and the fetus are surrounded by water, which means they get energised by the sun. So, what do we need to do to fix our own environments? Circadian rhythms are essential. Natural sunlight is what our cells and hormones and brain are aligned with. Non-native light is harmful, so we just need to be thinking about, can we reduce our non-native electromagnetic light? Can we change our light globes? So these are our light globes at home in our pendants, and after the sun goes down, that's the brightness of our light at home. Photobiomodulation. If you really can't get enough, or if you've got healing to do, there's nothing wrong with getting your own device or going and seeing a specialist like Dashi, who's sitting here, who's got amazing infrared devices. There are so many studies that show how important this can be for healing. Now, when I went through medical school, they were using ray lamps on the labour and delivery wards to heal episiotomies. They don't use them anymore, but you know, it's really old technology and it's good technology. So if it was something that you think about, get your own price. Reducing brain inflammation, where does food fit in? So obviously, this is the first door that I opened because my son has epilepsy. There's really good studies that show ketosis helps epilepsy. In other words, fasting helps epilepsy. So, if fasting helps epilepsy, that's why I asked myself the question, well, what is it actually doing inside the brain? What do ketones do? Ketones are a clean fuel. Ketones are actually the way we evolved. For hundreds of thousands of years, we were in ketosis as hunters and gatherers, and it's really only since the advent of the dietary guidelines that we've kind of been kicked out of ketosis. So brains love ketones. If you want to, you can actually pull the carbs out of your diet, do it by going low carb, you could do it by going onto keto. It's called keto diet. I actually hate that term because it's actually not a keto diet, it's just the way we should all be eating. That is what makes it intended for us. Insulin resistance actually creates inflammation. So when we're eating breakfast, lunch and tea and snacking in between, we're spiking our insulin constantly. It's not good for your brain. Your brain doesn't like it. So I just say eat nutrient-dense foods, eat seasonally, eat locally produced, without sprays hopefully, or chemicals, according to your latitude. So again, that goes back to the hunters and gatherers. How were the people healthy in our country before we arrived? They were healthy because they were eating what was actually available to them. So that's what we should all be aspiring to do. Go to the farmers markets. Also make sure you meet protein and fat and salt targets, because we're not doing that. We've all been told to cut out the salt. When we cut out the salt, we crave the sugar. So salt, there's a book called The Salt Fix, absolutely amazing. We're all meant to be getting around about 2 teaspoons of salt a day. If you're not, just see what it gives you. And make sure you meet your protein targets. Measure your insulin. Don't wait for diabetes. This is the insulin researcher, Ben Bickman. Does amazing stuff and gives amazing lectures online. You can get just really quick little grabs. Does a fantastic job. But basically, he says the insulin will spike around about 10 to 15 years before you see a rise in your sugar level. So doctors are taught to wait for the sugar level to rise and then say you've got diabetes and then put you on diabetes medication. But in actual fact, a doctor can check your insulin level prior to that for the 10 to 15 years and say, oh, you're becoming insulin resistant. That causes inflammation. Let's pull some carbs out, see what that gives you. And it works. These are metabolic psychiatrists, Georgia E. and Christopher Palmer. 20 years of amazing research. They work with people with high-end things like schizophrenia, bipolar, borderline personality disorders, and they use keto and low-carb plans to try and help people. So they say, basically, psychiatric illness may be caused by insulin resistance, inflammation, nutrient deficiencies like fish oil deficiency, vitamin D deficiency, B12, minerals, iron, iodine, zinc, all things you get from meat and seafood. So measure for them and replace them, and don't follow this, but do consider superfoods, shellfish, oily fish, offal, red meat, eggs. So I get mine through Grassland Nutrition because it's an easy way. I tried cooking liver, I didn't do a very good job, stunk the house out. So I find that it's really easy for me to be able to prescribe these sort of things, rather than say, go and get a liver. But if people want to go and get a liver, get a liver. I like to prescribe real food, real exercise, and real sunlight. So, these are all essential for brain function. I've already mentioned them. So how do you get healthy? Intuitively, you already know this pathway. All I'm doing is I'm giving you an opportunity. It's almost like I'm giving you permission to do what you feel intuitively is the right thing to do. I want you to respect your spectacular uniqueness. I want you to show love for yourself. I want you to ground yourself wherever you happen to be and come home to you. Find your tribe and love them. Use breath mindfully. You are the most important person in the room when you go and see a doctor, and I hope you know that. The take-home message, shift your paradigm in thinking. Ask yourself, rather than what have I got wrong with me, ask yourself the question, what can I do to help myself? What can I do to make changes in order to help my mitochondria? How can I boost my energy? The health of our community is suffering, and we need to start making changes. If we don't make changes, nobody else is going to come and help us. We've actually got the research. It's all there. It's about energy, it's about mitochondria. Tests don't guess. These are the tests that I try and do and make sure that I don't miss anything. And I try and work with people, find the easiest pathway for them, because we're all going to be different. Shift our metabolic levers by seeing sunrise and sunsets, fix your light environment, low carb eating, protein targets. Move intelligently under sunlight if you can. Find your rhythm, do some nature bathing, grounding, use it for air. These are the researchers that I follow. I hope you have a chance to follow them as well. And now I'm going to hand you over to Olaf Sorensen, who is a strength trainer. He's so much more than just a strength trainer though. He reminds me of Gina in that he looks at things differently. He pulls things together. He opens up discussions and conversations, and in doing so gently causes transformation within the community. Where is he? Are you going to come out and speak now?